the rain, the wind, the ocean.
Our ancestors here, challenged by life circumstances.
The music we provide, I hope, can become part of the sounds of Kalaupapa.
I remember my grandmother, my 할머니. She was 17 years old. She got on a boat, the Chichimaru.
모르는 남자하고 사진을 교환했다. 그 사람은 내 남편이 될 참이었지.
In the old days, Koreans called Hawaii Powa.
Imagine all of these people, especially immigrants,
힘들었지.
I think that's my duty as a musician.
배고픔, 아픔, 그리고 당혹감. 한 달에 $1씩 한국 독립운동을 위해서 기부도 했어. 나의 고향, 나의 조국.
Welcome to the Korea Society. Some of you may already know this, but today, January 13th, is Korean American Day, which celebrates the first arrival of Korean immigrants to the United States in 1903. And I can't think of a better way to commemorate this day than screening and watching this film together with you all. The film is Songs of Love from Hawaii, and we are thrilled to welcome Jinyoung Lee, the award-winning journalist turned filmmaker who directed Songs of Love from Hawaii. Please welcome her.
안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Thanks so much.
So as those of you here just saw, Songs of Love from Hawaii weaves together three stories from the long history of the Korean diaspora in Hawaii, blending historical narratives with a beautiful musical performances. And you will have a chance to ask your questions to Jinyoung later this evening. Well, first of all, welcome to the Korea Society, Jinyoung.
Thank you so much.
Coming all the way from Hawaii.
I'm so excited to join this event.
And so glad that we got to do it in the dead of winter, so at least we can dream about Hawaii when it's so cold outside. So how did it all begin? What inspired to make this film?
Great question, but before I say anything else yet, I just want to say thank you to each one of you here, because I really believe the power of storytelling as a filmmaker, and it's the audience that completes the whole cycle of storytelling. And thank you to the also Korea Society and Jay and her wonderful team for making this meeting possible. And I see some non-Korean friends, obviously, and I really thank you for embracing our narratives with open hearts. Thank you so much. And answering your question, the motivation, because I grew up in Korea. A lot of people think that maybe I grew up in Hawaii because it's Songs of Love from Hawaii. But I graduated from college in Korea. And one day I just visited Hawaii and I just fell in love with it. Basically the landscape, the nature was amazing. And I thought, it would be nice to live in Hawaii, if I have opportunity. And back then I was dating Korean American from Boston, and I was talking to him, hey, do you want to go to Hawaii with me for 1 year? Then we can marry, when he proposed to me. So then really we went to Hawaii after, maybe it was like 25 years old. I was pretty young. And living there obviously was different from traveling. Even though it was me who really wanted to go to Hawaii and made the move, I realized what am I doing here? Like, where do I belong? Korea or Hawaii, or am I Korean American or Koreans? Because I am, but I plan to live there for the rest of my life. But then my souls belong to Korea. And my dad passed away. So during the time of maybe like kind of dark time of my life, I was thinking I just couldn't find, where I need to go in the future. Like when he passed away, I started like really questioning myself, like, what do I have to, live for? I was a journalist for many years, and like I was thinking to myself, like, is this a story that I want to tell? When I even couldn't find my own place in the new land, and I discovered the Korean American history in Hawaii, and it was just it just deeply moved me. I mean, it's not just a one moment, but it was researching for a few years, and then the love, the resilience that these people had, and I just thought this is such an inspirational story that I wanted to share with others who might be having some difficulties in their lives. So answering your question, the motivation was two, I think. I wanted to honor those who didn't have voices, the ordinary people. And then also through that story, I wanted to, I was hoping that someone will find this story as moving and as kind of hopeful as me.
So as someone growing up in Korea, were you aware of the stories of Korean diaspora in Hawaii before you moved to Hawaii? And since you've embarked on this journey, what do you think is sort of the awareness of the Korean diaspora in Hawaii among Korean Americans or Asian Americans even?
Yeah, I like myself, I had no idea that Hawaii had such a history. Like, I didn't know that the beginning of the entire Korean American history started from Hawaii. And I don't think many of my friends who went to schools with me in Korea knew about it. I think the reason is, like in history, oftentimes when you think of history, like famous people come up, right? Like, everybody knows An Jung-gun, especially with the Howard been, going so well. Or, there are many independence fighters that people know, but we rarely hear about where the funds to support them came from. It was the, Hawaii plantation workers, not just them, but some Koreans, back then were in California mostly, I guess, didn't reach East Coast yet. So all these people's real hardworking, like they are also the real backbones of this independence movement, or even after the Korean War, when Korea recovered, from the war. Like, a lot of Korean Americans have so much, but I just didn't know anything about it. And I think it's because, we often tell like big people, influential people, but not ordinary people, maybe.
And so I do want to talk a little bit about the film itself, because this one really looks quite different from what you normally think of as a documentary film. Instead of voiceover narrations, you have music.
Right.
Stories are told through basically sound and images and animation. So when you first embarked on this project, what was your vision?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I was deeply moved by our shared history in Hawaii, but like I had to find a good way to reach many people. Okay, so I decided to leave my job as a news anchor that I had for 10 years when I discovered this story. So then my first film called The Words of Wisdom from the Rainbow State came out. But that's about like 5 Korean descendants of the early immigrants. Then the format that I chose was interview, because that was the least expensive way to capture all these beautiful stories. Because their stories are beautiful, but like I just didn't have a good way to capture them. Having more than 2 videographers were too expensive. The end visual, even though their stories are beautiful, I felt like it's not a very effective way, especially for younger generation, to watch it through. So then for my second project, I was thinking like, what would be the better way to reach wider audience, young and old, or Korean and non-Korean. So the music was the best way I could think of first, because oftentimes I do believe that music can tell better stories even than words when it's performed, especially by these, wonderful musicians with their hearts. And animation is same. I want you to like touch audiences' hearts. It's not instead of just relaying facts from through the film. I really wanted them to feel the emotion of Korean diaspora. So use the animation for that reason. So basically, like as an indie filmmaker, I just tried to explore different ways to reach wider audience with creative ways.
And tell us a little bit about the choice of music. Who made choices in terms of what songs or pieces to be played and why?
Yeah.
Some of them obviously related to Korea. There's the some of the Korean folk songs,
Right.
but then there's Danny Boy, which at this point I think it's not an Irish song. It's basically a Korean song because basically all Koreans know that song. So can you tell us a little bit about your choice of music?
Yeah, of course. Also, like not just music was used, not just the like a background music here in this film, as you saw. I tried to choose the music that can really amplify the emotions of the audience. So after I wrote the story, entire scenario, for each section, I listed up maybe 10 different music to choose from, and then I sat down with the composer. So there are 3 composers for 3 different parts. One is really good at rearranging the Korean folk music because he knows the Korean folk music very well. Versus like part 3, Keola Beamer, the guitarist, rearranged together with the composer who is really good at orchestra composing too. So like with the list of the songs that I had, finally with the composer and also musicians, we finally decided the ones that can really tell good stories within the film. Like for example, like Amazing Arena. It's like a combination of like real Korean song and Amazing Arena is like often sang in the United States. And I asked Richard Yongjae O'Neill when I was thinking of like what music to play there, what his mom's favorite song was, and he said it was Amazing Grace. And as many of you might know, Richard's mom is a war orphan, Korean war orphan. So he grew up in the United States. So he really had he put in his heart in this performance. I know this. So I wanted musicians to be also part of the story, not just the performer for the film that they are not familiar with. So that's why I also chose musicians who have some immigration experience, especially, and also contribute music selection as well, so that they can perform with their heart.
Great. And then, so then, what was it like to work with all these prominent musicians and actors? The voiceover of the second part, the Harmonious Brass Ball, is by a famous Korean actress, Jang.
Yeah.
What was it like to work with all these different creative types? And was there any memorable experience collaborating with them?
There's so many. I think it was remarkable. Especially, I'm not Bong Joon-ho, or I'm not. It was an honor for me to collaborate with them. But if you think about it, like how did it happen? A lot of people ask me questions like, how much did you have to pay them? But something that was really moving is that all these 4 musicians were in my A list, and when I just sent DM direct message through Instagram, I am so and so, because if you go through their agency, their artist fee is way too high. I cannot afford, right? And I just try to really explain why I want to do this and why this project is important, especially for future generations who might not know of this story. And these 4 musicians accepted, in a sec, saying that, I think it's because they believed in this project and they believed in the importance of preserving our story. And, like Keola Beamer said, we were hoping that this will share the Aloha spirit as well. Yeah. And it was, there's so many moments that were remarkable, but I want to save some time to, hear your thoughts too. So maybe we can talk about it if we have time later.
So before we go to the audience question, I'm sure there was a lot of research and preparation that went into this film, but still, was there any surprises?
Oh, there are many. Showing the film visually, beautifully, very creative way. That was one thing that I really try hard. But on a flip side, I had to really do my homework, do a good research, and I consulted a lot of different experts in history, especially the immigration history. And through the process, it was just amazing facts after. Like, do you remember Korean women holding the flag? That's 1925, like where Korea wasn't existing, and these ladies were holding the flags and telling the world that our country is still there. Don't forget us, type of thing. And these ladies were there as a picture bride. They were working so hard, and even if it was hard to meet their, they had families to raise real hard way, but still funded Korea as independence movement and all that. It was just was so moving. I just cannot, imagine how people did that. And when you hear about this story, like you really feel, I don't know how to say it, but I really felt this, love that passed down. And yeah, there were so many great stories that I couldn't include in the film. But, yeah.
So if you have questions, you can raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you. But speaking of choosing stories,
Yes.
why these two, obviously of the Grandma's Breast Bowl and then that of the Kim Chun-sok, who went to Papa. Why these two particular stories? What did they spoke to you?
I see.
In order for you to choose their particular story to be included.
Yeah. I didn't want to tell history from distance. I wanted to show how these personal narratives can really connect us to the history. They are these ordinary people also made the history to proceed and advance. And like if you think about it, I don't have a grandmother personally, but we can relate to the story very much when it's told through personal narratives. And Lee Mok-sun's story was like no doubt because Gary Park, who was the narrator, he was one of the 5 interviewees that I did for my first film, Words of Wisdom from the Rainbow State. And when he first talked about his grandmother, Lee Mok-sun, I could really feel something very strong, from his heart. He was like, do you know Han? What Han means, Jinyoung? My grandmother has so much Han, but she has so much love. And like how he described his grandmother, made me think that one day I want to explore her life and her story of hers. So then when I finally had the funds to create my second film, I went back to Gary. Hey, Gary, come on, you have something that you wrote about her because he's a writer, even though he said in the film that he couldn't write about her because it's just so much love that he couldn't express. But I thought he might have some draft at least, and so that's how he shared his draft, and then we developed this story to make a 18-minute story of Lee Mok-sun. And through her own small a personal story, I wanted to show part of history that's important, even though it's not it's not heard many times. And Kim Chun-sok's story, sometimes whether you want or not, like Kim Chun-sok was taken there, and there's another guy who was taken to Kalaupapa, not because he had a leprosy, but because he had a difficulties with language, right? Because he couldn't speak English, he was taken there. When I found this story in the Hawaii State Archives, I just felt so sad, and I wanted to go there with musicians to honor their souls first. And then it shows the power of community, which is very similar to immigrants society, where even though they were Kim Chun-sok and other people were taken to this, very sad and difficult situation. The community, helped each other and found a new hope there. I thought was a good reflection of immigrant society.
And it shows that Korean American history is part of the Hawaiian history.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And
I was a little concerned, like when I first was telling a story of Kim Chun-suk, like if people will find this irrelevant. But I to me and to some people, thankfully, it is relevant because, you know, you never know what's gonna happen when you immigrant to a new country. And it's the community, it's the, you know, Korean American community or other ethnic groups who contributed to your success too. So it, you know, there are a lot to think about, I believe.
Any questions?
Thank you so much. It was beautiful. From your research, my biggest question was, since the film, it's documentary length, it's not a full feature film length, what stories did you find were you not able to share in the film?
From the history, you mean?
Yes.
There's so much, because 122 years of history, it's not a short time. And for the first part, I wanted to show just like a summary of it. But even that, I was like trying so hard to find the events that can really represent the time. But maybe like other continents, not just Hawaii, but half of these original immigrants, like 7,000 something people, moved to the United States. So these are the people who don't stay still. They always look for better opportunities, and they're pioneers. So I wanted to follow their story as well. But you know, you can't do so much within 60 minutes. So even though Songs of Love from Hawaii is focused on, you know, Songs of Love, Hawaii, for my next project, I would love to explore Songs of Love from, you know, California, New York, or Songs of Love from Japan, because all different continent has such different but beautiful Korean diaspora.
This is terrific. Could you talk a little bit more about the people who had leprosy? Did all of them actually have leprosy, or were they isolated for other reasons?
Right, yeah. Thank you for the wonderful question. Sadly enough, like there are a lot of people who were taken there, not because they had leprosy. Like Keola Beamer, Mr. Keola Beamer, he is Hawaiian, half Irish, you know, so he knows the history in Hawaii. And he once told me that, like in old days, politics, like a lot of politics, like if there's one politician doesn't like this guy, then he will say, hey, I see something in your back. And then you know, the security disappears. And then also, like in our film, just because you couldn't speak the language English, if you had I don't know, something small, and because they couldn't defend themselves, that this is not a leopard, this is like, I don't know, mosquito bite or whatever, they were taken. And once you're there, it's done. It's done. You're not gonna come back. And there's like a lot of sad stories too, like when a guy found out that he had a leper and is gonna take away, he took his family to a small part of like Big Island. He was like hiding there, and you know, the entire family got caught and they got killed. And so Kalapapa is a history that's kind of very important, but kind of sad too. So not many people are comfortable to talk about it. But for me, in the beginning, it was solely to honor these people who were there, because I thought, you know, what a difficult life they must have had. But then through research, I found these beautiful stories that, you know, these people formed their own community. And some people said, you know, she learned to love their, you know, I just learned so much from the experience. Thank you for asking.
The film was released in Korea, actually. It
yeah.
had a theatrical release there. How was the film received in Korea? And what has been like for you to see the response from different audiences, whether they are Korean or Korean American or non-Korean?
Right.
Do you see any similarities, or are there any differences?
Yeah. Definitely, it's so different. For Korean American community, when I have a screening, a lot of people come up to me and say, you know, thank you for telling my stories. That's always moving. And there was one young gentleman who told me that, you know, after the harmonious breast ball, he had to leave the room to call his grandmother in New York, actually, to say how much he loves her. And she responded, I love you too, and they ended up in tears. And when he shared a story like that, it just makes me really happy. And in Korea, that was the most probably amazing thing that I never imagined that we will have a theatrical release, because it involves a lot of money, and a lot of things had to happen for the theater release. But when I reached out to three biggest theater chains, CGV and Megabox and Lotte, two of them got back to me within a month saying that they want the nationwide release, because even these programmers said they had no idea about Korean immigrations and Korean Americans' contribution to Korea. So they believe that a lot of people will love this film. And when it got released, yeah, a lot of people told me that this is the story that I never knew, even though it's our ancestors. So I was really thankful for that, and it is still on in Korea. So maybe one more week, but it was just I just felt so grateful. Yeah. But there was one scene in the film, I don't know if you watched, when Ignace was playing the violin on a ship. There was a huge rainbow. I remember that scene because to get the permit to get on that ship, and also in the Pearl Harbor, I had to get two permits, one from the Korean Navy and the other one from the U.S. Because it's a U.S. territory. Anyway, it was very difficult. But when we got to the boat, I saw a huge rainbow, and my crew, and we were talking about how maybe this is the sign from our ancestors in heaven that telling us we're doing a good job. So with that energy and all that together, all these audiences honoring the souls, I think magic happened, including the theatrical release and reaching the Korean audiences in Korea.
And then what's next for you?
So we're developing a free web page for educators, for teachers and educators, and because I'm hoping to reach students in the United States. Even though it's a Korean story, I think love and resilience are real universal themes that bind us together. So we're also making this web page to make it accessible for students in public school and in library. So we're raising funds for that part too. So if you guys know any organizations, know anybody who wants to support our mission, please let us know.
Well, keep us posted. But once again, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful film and coming all the way here. Wishing you all the best. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
감사합니다. 감사합니다.